Okay, so we'll begin. Hare Krishna, welcome to our session on Queen Kunti's prayers. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunivadi Paschatya Deshtarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you for joining us today for another session on lessons we learn from women in Srimad-bhagavatam. Today we are going to discuss the most wonderful prayers of Queen Kunti. So this section is very special because just like all the other devotees when they pray to Krishna, there's so much we can learn from their prayers. We'll see in Queen Kunti's prayers that it's not only do we learn a lot of Krishna conscious philosophy just by studying the prayers, but also these prayers are saturated with devotion that Queen Kunti has for Lord Krishna. So overall it's very inspiring, very sweet to read. So I hope that in the next few sessions we will, Krishna willing, to have some wonderful discussions. Now, one thing is that these shlokas, just like every word of Srimad-bhagavatam, is so deep and meaningful that we can discuss for a long time. For days we could discuss one verse, but because of time constraints, we would not be able to do that. So therefore I would request all of you that in your own time please carefully study the purports of these verses by Srila Prabhupada, because typically I pick up only a portion of it for discussion. And also these verses are so wonderful. Prabhupada gave a series of lectures on these in 1973 in New York and Los Angeles. And these were later collected and published as a book by titled Teachings of Queen Kunti. So I would highly recommend that everybody gets a copy, reads it, because they are very powerful, and that's one way to get more out of these verses. So we'll begin. We are going to begin by at a point when Lord Krishna is about to leave for Dwarka. So that's verse 1, 8, 17. Translation. Thus saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra, Kunti, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons and Draupadi addressed Lord Krishna as he started for home. So what it's mentioned in this shloka, Srimati Kunti Devi is described as Pritha Sati. So Pritha is also Kunti Devi's name, and she's described as Sati. Sati means chaste, a person who's chaste. So in many of our discussions, we discuss this quality of chastity with relation to women, but it is usually in relation to their husbands. It is recommended that a woman should be always, this is one of her primary duties, to be chaste to her husband. But Srimad-bhagavatam also reminds us that it is, along with our material duties, we have our spiritual duties. And chastity has a role to play in our spiritual duties also. In what way? Here the chastity has to be directed towards the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport, Kunti is described herein as Sati or chaste due to her unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. That was all along the characteristic of the whole family of the Pandavas. So we've already discussed about Draupadi, Uttara, and we saw that all of them are great devotees. They are very chaste in their devotion to Lord Krishna. So what does it actually mean to be chaste to Lord Krishna? So Srila Prabhupada explains that. What that means is they knew nothing except Krishna. One should not therefore look for help from imperfect living beings or demigods. But one should look for all help from Lord Krishna, who is competent to save his devotees. So this is what is the meaning of chastity towards Lord Krishna, that you do not go to anyone else for anything, not the demigods who are also capable. It's not that they are not capable, but Lord Krishna is capable in all respects, and the capability that we are seeking is not just in the material realm but beyond that. So that capability is only with Krishna to actually deliver us from this material world. So whether it is material or spiritual, it is recommended that we turn to Lord Krishna if we want something. So Srila Prabhupada says one should look for all help from Lord Krishna. Then he says, such a devotee also never asks the Lord for help. So Lord Krishna is competent to save him, but the devotee does not ask for help. But the Lord, out of his own accord, is always anxious to render it. So I found there are so many contradictions that Srila Prabhupada is putting here. First he said we should look for all help from Lord Krishna. He also says that the Lord is anxious to give that help. But then he says that chaste devotees never ask for help. So how do we reconcile these seemingly contradictory statements? So one thing that I noticed was that Srila Prabhupada said that one should not go to anybody except Lord Krishna. So here he's talking in general, about devotees in general, that if somebody feels the need that they need help or intervention from someone else, then Srila Prabhupada recommends that one should only seek that from Lord Krishna. At the same time, he is telling us that actually the pure devotees don't even want to go to Lord Krishna for any help, because one, they trust that the Lord will do whatever is right for them, and second, they don't have any anxiety or desires, so they don't even need to exercise that need to go to someone. So this is how we can understand that there is, if at all we have to go, don't go to the demigods. Not that we disrespect them, but our chastity is directed towards Lord Krishna. That's why. So this was a wonderful point explained by Srila Prabhupada, and it sets the stage for the prayers of Queen Kunti, because she is indeed such a chaste devotee of the Lord. So Queen Kunti's prayers begin in 1:8:18. Kunti uvacha namasye purusham tadvam ishwaram prakrite param alakshayam sarvabhutanam antirbahiravastitam. Translation. Srimati Kunti said, O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality and you are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, and yet you are invisible to all. So Srila Prabhupada, very nice as always, he explains every portion of this verse in detail for us. First thing is that Srimati Kunti Devi says, I offer all obeisances unto you. So Srila Prabhupada explains that according to the rules and regulations, she cannot offer him obeisances because he is in social status younger than her, in social status lower than her, because he is her nephew. But he explains, such an enlightened lady could not commit a mistake by offering obeisances unto her nephew. Therefore, she addressed him as the original Purush beyond the material cosmos. So, immediately when she is addressing him, she makes it clear that she is not looking at him as her nephew. She is seeing him as the Supreme Personality. So, that was the first part, when she offers obeisances. Then she goes on to say that you are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. So Srila Prabhupada explains that living entities are apt to fall down under the clutches of material nature, but the Lord is never like that, clearly. So this is glorifying the Lord, that He is the one personality who is absolutely unaffected by the material world, and he can never come under the influence of that. This is important to clarify. It seems like a no-brainer, right? I mean, he created the material world, so how can he anyway come under it? But there are schools of thought where they say that there is the material world and there's the Lord, and they are separate and powerful in their own right. So no, our Shastras clearly explain that actually Lord Krishna is the master of the material energy. So that is reiterated by Kunti Devi, and she says, she addresses him as Ishvara. So Srila Prabhupada explains that everybody in some way or the other is a Ishvara, the living entities, to a larger extent the demigods. Ishvara means controller, but the supreme controller is Lord Krishna, and that's what Kunti Devi says. Ishwaram Prakriti Param. So he is the supreme controller. So that was the next thing that Srila Prabhupada explains. And then Kunti Devi says something that has been puzzling her, that you are within, you are outside, and yet you are invisible to all. So Srila Prabhupada explains that Kunti Devi herself experienced this, that he was in front of her. At the same time, he entered the womb of Uttara and protected Parikshit. And despite all this, that he is outside, he is within, at the same time he is invisible, in the sense that people don't know that he is the Supreme Lord. So from that point of view, he is invisible. And she explains this further. She's saying that it's a mystery. Like, who is this personality? How can we understand him? So in the next verse, 1:8-19, she says, being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of the deluding energy. Yeah? You are the eternally irreproachable factor that is not easy to reproach. You cannot be approached because of the covering of the deluding energy. You are invisible. Again she says, you are invisible. Why? So now she explains it further, what she said in the previous shloka. You are invisible to the foolish observer, and she gives an analogy, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. So sometimes very beautiful plays, dramas take place, and all these actors come on stage with heavily done makeup, props and costumes, and to the extent that you cannot recognize. Sometimes young people play the part of an old man, and you cannot believe that they are not actually hunched and with white hair because it's done so expertly. But that's not who they are in real life. And that's how Krishna is. That's the conclusion that Kunti Devi draws, that you're just invisible to the foolish people, the mudhas. Srila Prabhupada explains. So in this purport, first Srila Prabhupada establishes that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah? He explains that he exhibited humanly impossible activities even from the days of his lying on the lap of his mother. So that was one thing. Second, he said, all these activities are described in authoritative scriptures, the Vedas, like Puranas, Itihasas and Upanishads. So they are described in scriptures, his activities. And the third thing is that these scriptures are accepted by authoritative personalities who come in the disciplic succession. And he names so many of them. Vyasadev, Narad Muni, Ramanuja, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jiva Goswami, and he also says Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. So all these people, exalted personalities who have spent their life in studying the scriptures, devoted to the spiritual practice, and they have accepted that yes, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality. So first, in this way, Srila Prabhupada proves that Krishna is indeed the Supreme Personality. Three things. That when he comes, he does extraordinary things. These things are recorded, and all these things are accepted by saintly individuals. So he says, Okay, clear, Krishna is God. But at the same time, Kunti Devi says the foolish people do not accept. And Srila Prabhupada explains, such persons could not recognize Lord Krishna even when he was present before them. So, when Lord Krishna was actually on earth and he was displaying his pastimes, it's not that everybody who saw him was like, oh, beautiful, it's the Lord, and surrendered immediately. So, we have an example when the battle of Mahabharat, Kurukshetra, was about to take place. So as a final attempt to quell the deadly war, Lord Krishna went to Dhritarashtra and appealed to him that why don't you just cut off Duryodhana and his evil plans and just resolve the situation, give some land to the Pandavas. Duryodhana was very upset and he thought that, oh, this Krishna is, spoiling the plan of going ahead with the war, and what I'll do is I'll capture him. That will really dishearten the Pandavas. So with this in mind, he came in the court. And Lord Krishna, knowing everything, showed his universal form at that point. And it was wonderful and it was amazing, but it made no difference to Duryodhana. He probably thought, it's just some illusion, he's like a magician or some mystic yogi, and he was unaffected. He did not, even then, Krishna is in front of him, he's showing him everything, but he did not accept. So this is what Srila Prabhupada explains, how foolish. And then, so in that time, people didn't accept. So what to say of this yuga, when they are not even that intelligent, and yet they think that they are. They feel that because they cannot see from their material senses, so they reject the existence of God. And Srila Prabhupada brings out this point about the scientists, because Kunti Devi in this verse addresses Lord Krishna as Adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means one who is beyond the material perception, that he is in a different realm. He cannot be perceived by these material senses. So it's all in vain what they are trying, that through our experiment we want to be convinced that there is God. In our lab it should be conclusively proven that there is God, only then we will accept. It's impossible, because you cannot perceive him through your material senses, and all their instruments and all are a result of their senses and their material intelligence. So it will never happen. So they never accept, which is unfortunate. So Srila Prabhupada goes on to say in this purport that Queen Kunti accepts this deficiency of the conditioned soul, especially of the woman class, who are less intelligent. For less intelligent men, there must be such things as temples, mosques or churches, so that they may begin to recognize the authority of the Lord and hear about him from authorities in such holy places. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining that for less intelligent people, these places of worship are required. And he says, for less intelligent persons, bowing down before the authority of the Lord, as generally done in temples, mosques or churches, these places are there, is as beneficial as it is for the advanced devotees who meditate upon him by active service. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining that actually some of the structures or the institutes that are formed are to uplift all kinds of people who are less intelligent. By less intelligent, it means they're not philosophically inclined. So it's not that through scripture they can be convinced. So in that case, they can just by bowing down before the Lord, they will be purified. So this is the method for a certain class of people. And in Bhagavad Gita also this is recommended by Srila Prabhupada in 140 purport. This is the verse where it is explained that when the men will be killed in the battlefield, the women may get polluted. So Srila Prabhupada explains that by being in the purport, By being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. So it is recommended that let the women be engaged in the rituals that are required as a spiritual practice. And he says different family traditions of religious activities should always engage them. So sometimes we get this question that, in our family they follow a certain tradition which is not strictly what is done in ISKCON. So should we follow it or not? So our answer is that, it depends. If you have time left over, sometimes we are not able to include more things. We already have our sadhana. But there's no harm in it. If you can accommodate it, it's actually recommended, because all religious activities, if done with a sincere heart, will only help us to progress. Minimally, they will bring us to the mode of goodness. So there's no harm, and in fact it is recommended for women that it should be done. So on this topic of who can understand Lord Krishna, Srimati Kunti Devi speaks further in 1:8:20. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service onto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators. So in the verse it is said Muni. Muni, Srila Prabhupada translates as transcendentalists and mental speculators. So they are both classes of people who study scriptures and are well versed in philosophy, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. So this is actually purifying. It's bringing one to mode of goodness when one at least theoretically understands that there is matter, there is spirit, so there is something beyond this material world. So that knowledge also purifies, Gyan. So Srimati Kunti Devi is saying that actually Lord Krishna descends for the upliftment of such individuals who are so close to the goal of life, because they have theoretically understood things, but there's a little bit of a bridge which is missing, which is that the devotion, it has not resulted in devotion. So Lord Krishna himself comes, and then being introduced to his wonderful pastimes, then they have the theoretical knowledge, then they get to see the wonderful pastimes, and they are attracted, and they can become delivered from this material world. So such people who have already done all this, understood, and they are purified, they can appreciate who Lord Krishna is. And then Kunti Devi says, how then can we women know you perfectly? So because at this point she's saying that who can come close to understanding you? Those people who are so intelligent, they know about philosophy, through their spiritual practice and austerities, they are purified of heart. They have a chance, and you come personally for them. You are favorable towards the Gyanis. But what about us, women? So she is, like she said in the previous verses, that it's a mystery. It's not easy to understand Krishna. And then after saying that it's not easy, she's saying, especially for women who are less intelligent. So whenever we come across this topic of women being less intelligent, we see that Srila Prabhupada approaches it differently given the context. Previously he would say that yes, women are less intelligent, but there's no need to worry, because Lord Krishna assures that women, Shudra, Vaishyas, they can all go back to Godhead with their sincerity. So there's a different angle that Srila Prabhupada explores in this purport. I'll just read it out. He says about Lord Krishna, he is unknowable by great learning or by the greatest brain. He is knowable only by one who has his mercy. Others may go on thinking about him for years together, yet he is unknowable. This very fact is corroborated by the Queen. who is playing the part of an innocent woman. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers, but they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority and almightiness of the Lord. So first, Srila Prabhupada mentions that women in general cannot speculate, but they have something to their advantage, that because of their simple mind, they accept the supremacy of the Lord. And thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that He does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. For this reason only, women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. So this Srila Prabhupada says that we can all experience that women will be there in great numbers whenever there is a discourse or there's a festival, there's a yatra. In every country and in every sect of religion, it appears that the women are more interested in men. The simplicity of acceptance of the Lord's authority is more effective than showy, insincere religious fervor. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining that this is the advantage to being a woman, that they are simple, they accept, and then they will make spiritual progress. So when I read this, I thought, well, this seems a bit contradictory, because on one hand, it is said that women are less intelligent. Then Srila Prabhupada says, but they come to Krishna conscious or religious programs more in number, they accept easily. And one who accepts Krishna is supposed to be the most intelligent. So the conclusion would be that actually women are more intelligent because they are accepting Krishna. So what is happening here is that there are two aspects to devotional life or Krishna consciousness. One is the philosophy and the other is the sentiment or the bhav, the devotion itself. So both of these have to go side by side to achieve perfection. Here Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing that in this area of bhav or emotion, women have the upper hand because firstly they are simple, they accept it, so they're not that philosophical, but it can work in their favor, and therefore they accept very simply. So in that sense, it is encouraging, and this is what we should capitalize on, because women are soft-hearted, they are simple. If we are allowed to be like that, if we do accept our feminine traits and not go by the agenda of there's no difference between men and women, they should both be the same, that means women should also take on these really masculine qualities. So no, women on their own have their advantages, so at least they should accept that. So this was one thing that just like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had said, that religion without philosophy is sentiment, so this could be women, and philosophy without religion is mental speculation. So both men and women have an advantage. The men, that they are stronger in the philosophical aspect, and women, that they are stronger in the emotional aspect. And both, if they use their advantages or their the positives that they have to their advantage, then they can make progress. But at the same time, they have to be aware that they have to make up for their shortcomings also. So for the men, here it is mentioned that, if they are simply stuck in that place where they know the philosophy, but they are not able to transform that into devotion. So that's a problem that men have. On the other hand, women accept easily, but there's also a risk with that because if they are not strong philosophically, then they can be deviated or diverted, distracted from the spiritual path. If someone says something negative about sometimes we hear, oh, Lord Krishna was like this, he was a playboy, and they don't understand it clearly. Or in ISKCON, devotees are like this, or Srila Prabhupada said like this. Then if they do not take the time to understand things properly, then they will be disheartened. So that's a problem, and that's something we need to be aware of. So it's not always so much about who's intelligent. Both men and women have their good qualities, and that's what we should be focused on. And another very important lesson that we learn from Queen Kunti is that, like Srila Prabhupada says, that she's playing the part of an innocent woman. This is explained further in his lectures, the lecture series which were published in a book, Teachings of Queen Kunti. The 3rd chapter is based on this shloka, and the title of that chapter is The Most Intelligent Woman. So in that, Srila Prabhupada says, although Kunti had the body of a woman, she was a devotee. Therefore, she was not like an ordinary unintelligent woman. Rather, she was the most intelligent, for she recognized Krishna to be the supreme Godhead. So that's one thing. That it's, if anybody feels bad about being called less intelligent, here's a way to become the most intelligent. Wholeheartedly accept Krishna and be fully devoted to him. So that's a mark of great intelligence. But more importantly, what Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here is that maybe we should not be so hung up about these labels of intelligent or famous, beautiful, in this particular case, intelligent. He explains, in this verse, Kunti continues to express herself with humility. This humility is very good in devotional service. Therefore, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us, Trinadapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishna. One should be more tolerant than the tree and humbler than the grass to make progress in spiritual life. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that what should be one of the key takeaways from this verse, the humility that Kunti Devi displays. She is clearly not an unintelligent woman, but she is posing the question that how can we women understand you? She is admitting that the Lord is a mystery, and she's saying that as a woman, not that she's so unconcerned about external positions, which again we'll see in verses that follow, that she's not at all worried about fame or what anybody thinks of her. She's just worried about making spiritual progress, and she's saying, I wonder, I have this body of a woman, will I ever be able to understand the Lord? I have this disadvantage. So she's being very humble because actually she understands. Therefore the beautiful prayers. Bhakti Yoga is meant for those whose hearts are cleansed, not for the lusty or greedy. This is the test. When one becomes free from lusty desires and greed, then he is situated in Bhakti Yoga and is actually a Paramahamsa. So, Srila Prabhupada is explaining what is the definition or how to see whether we are making progress. That all these things, lust, greed, the desire for praise should reduce in our heart. Kunti Devi humbly submits. You are meant for the Paramahamsas and Munis. They have some chance of getting to know you or understand you. Those who are cleansed in heart and are engaged in Bhakti Yoga. But what are we? We are simply women. We are in a lower class. How can we understand you? So this is what Kunti Devi is saying. But Srila Prabhupada says, although she understands everything, she still takes the position of an ordinary woman and says, how can I understand you? This is humility. So very beautiful. The verses are nectarian and there's such deep philosophy. And yet we learn that devotees who have this understanding, they have the devotion in their heart, but still they do not think that, oh, now everybody should pay respects to me, I'm such an exalted devotee. No, they are saying that, well, I can't understand the Lord, so I'm nothing. I mean, what am I in front of the Supreme Lord? So not that humility should develop into an inferiority complex, but we should understand that progress in spiritual life means not being bothered about these things which appear to us so important, or we think that, oh, somebody will think less of us. That's not what will help us in making spiritual progress. So wonderful prayers by Kunti Devi. We'll pause here for question and answers. Please, Krishna willing, we'll have more sessions to discuss the remaining verses, and we hope that you all will join us. Hare Krishna. Mataji, you can you all can put your questions in chat, and if somebody wants to ask, they can raise their hand. Just so deep the words of the devotees. They help us to understand so many things in so precisely spoken, and they help us to understand how wonderful the Lord is. So we're very fortunate to be discussing and also observing, like we did with Princess Uttara also, that how should we pray to the Lord? By these prayers we understand that it's not about give me this, give me that, but how our prayers should be to glorify the Lord. Just like in our Vyasa Puja offering, the Vyasa Puja offering is to glorify the spiritual master. So it's all right if we want to submit what we have done as part of our service and offer that as an offering to the spiritual master for his happiness. But a major portion of the maximum, the Vyasa Puja offering should be just glorifying the spiritual master, because there's so much to say about the saintly devotees who are taking the role of gurus in our movement. So it's very nice to hear the prayers and contemplate on them. Hare Krishna. Mridu Mataji, are you going to handle the questions? Should I? Because there's a question, can you please explain how we can control the urge or desire to be recognized or praised? Yeah, that's a very good question. Krishna Priya Mataji.
Probably that question has been sent to you directly.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Because
maybe.
I can't.
I see. Okay, so the question by Krishna Priya, is it Krishna Priya? Yeah, Krishna Priya Mataji is, thank you for excellent session. Can you explain how we can control the urge or desire to be recognized? So, very nice, good question. It's similar to a question that we just discussed in the Hindi session also, to how to develop humility. Very big topic, but what we can do is we can start by contemplating on our own qualities and realizing, one, that whatever we have which we may be proud about are a result of our karma, or are given to us because we have so many facilities given by the Supreme Lord. So what are the things we may be proud about? Education, intelligence, beauty, wealth, fame. So all this is actually a result of our good karma. It's not that we worked so hard, because there are many people working very hard and not everybody achieves the same result. So one thing is to recognize that it's not only us who are doing it, and then it's, I'm achieving it, so I should be very proud of myself. It's a lot of factors have come into play. And secondly, so there's karma and Lord Krishna, and whatever we have is transient in the material world. So again, nothing to be proud about. Intelligence is such that, memory is such that it will fade with age. Almost everything, looks, memory, intelligence, and sometimes wealth also comes and goes. So there is really not much to be proud about, which doesn't mean that we should become morose, that, I'm nothing. What good qualities do I have? No, of course, we should, by such contemplation, we should be grateful that everything I have is because of the Supreme Lord. And that's another way of developing humility and not expecting praise. That if we are contemplating on the supremacy of the Lord and seeing how He's amazing, and that happens when we hear about His pastimes and we read about His qualities and we think, oh, God is so great. And His devotees, when we hear about His devotees, they are so amazing. And then we feel that, yeah, me not so much. So not to be, not to get depressed or anything, but we should have a realistic understanding of who we are vis-a-vis the Lord and His associates, and understand what our place is. Then we will not be so anxious. One is that. If you are humble, you will not be anxious. And yeah, not to be upset when someone else is getting that praise. Understanding that, oh, that's also coming from their good karma or the Lord's grace. So we should try to be happy for others, then we will not expect so much for ourselves. But the main thing is to contemplate that whatever is in the material world comes and goes. So that's anyway not worth expecting. What we should strive for is spiritual progress, which will always remain with us, life after life. So that's a goal worth striving for, not praise or fame. Because the downside of that is when we don't get it, we feel so morose and depressed. Oh, I put this nice post, I put in so much effort with the right picture and everything, only 5 people liked it. Or whatever, we did this amazing service, and when they were thanking the devotees who did the service, my name was not called. So maybe that's Krishna teaching us to be humble, so we should accept it. Yeah. So that's one way to look at it, to lower our expectations.
Mataji, there is a question from Tripti Sharma Mataji. She says, Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for such a beautiful session. She has actually 3-part question. One is how to maintain self-respect while serving our husband like servant and master.
Okay. So should I answer this?
And then her second question.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, one.
Are they unrelated questions?
We can that. The second question is, since nowadays both men and women are working, how to maintain balance and divide work. So seems to be unrelated.
Okay. So the first question is, how do we get respect? Is that, or how should we expect respect? What's the exact question?
How to maintain self-respect. How to maintain self-respect?
Maintain self-respect.
Like servant and master.
Okay. So one thing is that it's not exactly like servant and master in the conventional sense. Like, it's not the way we understand servant and master in the material world, because in that the master tends to be very harsh, and however he behaves, the servant just has to accept it, and he has no choice in the matter, because he's He's dependent on the master for his, if he like answers back or something, he may lose his job, which he doesn't want. Of course, in a husband and wife relationship, there's affection, there's love. So it should not be exactly like what we understand servant and master. Of course, it should be that the husband is taking the lead and the wife is obedient. In that sense, yes, he is acting like the master, but he should also on his part be affectionate and respectful, not harsh, sometimes maybe due to circumstances, but not all the time. So that's one thing. And so under those circumstances, your self-respect should not be affected, because you should be treated with care as a family member should be. So there's no question of not having self-respect. But even in a situation where for some reason your husband does not have the proper understanding of his role, and he's behaving in a very, high and mighty way, and like, I said this, that's it, you just have to accept. You can never ask a question, you can never have an opinion. So even if you are unfortunately in that situation, try to have a communication where that changes. Even if that doesn't happen, try to understand that if you are playing your part of being a dutiful wife, that's actually wonderful, because you're doing what the scriptures require you to do. And if you are extending that further and also progressing in your spiritual life, that's a very nice achievement. That's something that should give you solace. So a devotee cannot have low self-respect, because they feel the reciprocation from the Supreme Lord. Excuse me. So these are the two things. First, you should derive satisfaction from the fact that you are following your duty. So again, this should not be dependent on what the other people are doing. Similar to our previous question of, should we, how do we not expect praise, or how do we get over this? By yourself being satisfied. Your reasons should be that I'm doing my duty to come to the mode of goodness, so that I can follow the spiritual path nicely, or so that there's peace in my household. Whatever the reasons are, those reasons, and apart from that, you're also doing your spiritual duties. So you should not have less self-respect. In any case, a person who is doing their duty should be self-satisfied. So that's one thing. That would be my response to not losing self-respect. There is no reason to lose self-respect if you are doing your duty nicely. Ridu Mataji, second question.
Second question is, since nowadays both men and women are working, how to maintain balance and divide work? Yeah,
if they are both working, it's a bit difficult to do an exact 50-50 split, because there are just some things that men and women do differently. So like keeping the household running efficiently, that comes much easier to a lady, because she sees things differently. She has a more aesthetic point of view, and she will be more nurturing towards the family members. So if a child has to be, he has problems, and they need to talk to a parent, if it's to do with friends, this and that, they're more likely to discuss with the mum. So you cannot divide it 50-50. And there are things like handling few things like tax and investments, and also oftentimes men discuss these things, women not so much. So they are in a better position to make those decisions. They are more worldly wise in general. So it's very difficult, and this needs to be done on an individual case by case. That it's possible that it's the reverse. I know some ladies who, when they had young kids, the dad would get up in the night and pacify the child. Few cases like that. But in most cases, when the child is crying, automatically the mother wakes up. The father is not being indifferent, but they are just not wired to wake up. So in a particular family, I know that the dad would be more nurturing. But in most other cases, it's the ladies who take care of the children. So you have to kind of work it out. But I don't think it can ever be a strict 50-50. It is something that you have to work out with your partner. Generally speaking, it's better that the women handle the household. You know, they are better with handling household help, or the stocking up on the groceries, what to cook, and what's the schedule for cleaning, all those things. It's easier. About clothes, okay, these are hand washed clothes, these go in the machine, things like that. It's things that they've picked up growing up, and the men just may not know about it. So it will be quite a curve for them to pick up all the details. It's surprising, you know, running a household, there are so many details. Like now in October, I have to travel out for 10 days to be with my mom and sister. And my mind is just boggled thinking of how this family is going to manage. Of course, I have grown-up daughters. Ordinarily, they would handle it, but they have exams, and quite critical ones. So I'm just thinking, oh my God, you have to put the clothes, you have to get the clothes in. If it rains, you have to switch them at night. You have to put them under the fan. The dusting has to be done, the groceries, the fruits. It's like unending, those little details. So I don't see how it can be, there cannot be one answer to this. Every family has to sort it out and discuss it, and kind of, I think, be a little flexible also. There can be no hard and fast rules. Sometimes if you are stressed with work, let the husband do more, and vice versa. But it's very important to have good communication to figure these things out. Otherwise, it can become a matter of great disagreement. It also helps if not both of them have equal work pressure. So if one of them has little less pressure, then they can help more in the house, practically speaking.
Mataji, the third question is how to push through tough times or times when we are distracted, because we are so impure. Personally, I feel even though I'm very grateful and sure of Krishna consciousness, I'm unable to regain myself as Krishna conscious person without harming myself by doing wrongful things and then getting back.
Also, I think the issue seems to be like steadiness. That's rather important in spiritual life. This is the reason that Srila Prabhupada has given us the sadhana. So sadhana is a way by which we can remain connected and gradually make progress. So it would help if we are consistent with our sadhana. So this means that minimally, of course, chanting rounds, but whatever you can manage, some reading or hearing of lectures, on the weekends doing a little more, maybe meeting with some devotees or doing some service, inviting devotees home. So things like this, if you keep in touch and keep going, the analogy is given that just remain alive in Krishna consciousness, that just don't fall away. Just keep at it slowly, and it will have an effect. It will change your consciousness. But the sadhana must be followed. It's not that we are, flickering. That yes, we have the faith, the belief, but we have to do something about it. So that's what Srila Prabhupada says, that bhakti, he translated it very significantly as devotional service. So it's an activity. It's what Srila Prabhupada always wanted, engagement, no lazies. And of course, he said no lazies and crazies in ISKCON.
But the idea was that we must do more. And yeah, I think that will to have steadiness and to stick to ourselves.
Thank you, Mataji. I don't see any other question in the chat.
So we'll just wait for a minute. Otherwise, we can conclude the session. I hope you will be with me in this journey of exploring Queen Kunti's prayers. They're really very wonderful, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to study them in more detail and share them with you. Hare Krishna, we'll conclude our session for today. Chandrika Mataji, how do we know as women we are progressing in Krishna consciousness? Is that the question?
Yes, she's just posted the question. How
Okay,
do we...
so yeah, so Srila Prabhupada has given various tests, not particularly as women, but as devotees. And I think that applies to both men and women. At different points, Srila Prabhupada says differently, that if our desire, fame and fame is less, is reducing, our lust and greed is reducing. So it requires a lot of introspection. We have to see that we are changing as persons. Because we hear that a co-worker has got a promotion, or a cousin or a sister has done, her kids have done very well, or something like that. And when we feel that stab of envy, so it means, okay, there's still work to be done. There's still purification required. So ourselves will see that we are changing. Our heart is becoming purified. And when we feel that envy, we feel regret. So that itself is actually progress, to feel that, no, I should be happy. I mean, what's wrong with me? But otherwise, before that, we would be like, just trying to say that, oh, the child must have cheated, or it's just stupid institute that he got into, like justifying it to ourselves. But if we are able to stop ourselves that, no, I mean, I don't want to go down that route. So then we know, okay, we are making some progress. At different points, Srila Prabhupada has said, if you're developing affection for Krishna, you have the attraction, or yeah, if you feel that, I mean, you're coming here, you're spending your time in evening time when you could be doing so many things, but you're sitting here and we are discussing wonderful scriptures. So that's progress, because before we came in touch with Srila Prabhupada's books, who would have imagined that we would be discussing these exalted topics, these wonderful things? So that's progress. So all these things are signs of progress, but it's a good question. We should introspect that what changes do I see in myself? That's the barometer that we are making progress. Sometimes others see it and we don't. I remember one devotee sharing that he asked his guru that for so many years I'm chanting, I see no change. And his Guru Maharaj looked at him and he said, you don't see it, but we see it. So it's so sweet. So sometimes others can see it. That's also good. That's better. That means that you have developed an attitude of humility.
Mataji, there are more questions in the chat. So one question from Kamala Kalavati Mataji. She says, Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. How to respond to those who envy upon us for no reason? Why we feel what qualities we have at all that they feel envied? Sometimes they speak harshly or in a hurting way. I feel that I should glorify such a person so that she may not feel in such a way, since we are all individuals, and also to maintain good relationship with such people. Or should I simply ignore it? Please throw some light on this, Mataji.
Yeah, so both the things that you have mentioned are possible solutions. One thing is that somebody may be just feeling insecure. So if you kind of glorify them or speak nicely to them, then whatever bad feeling they have in their heart or envy, they would not be able to continue that, because they'll be so touched by your gesture of affection or kindness that they will be happy to put aside their bad feeling, and things can get better. So that's one thing. But the second thing you said is whether to stay away. So there are certain situations, like one of my close friends was sharing how there's a senior Mataji who's always targeting her, and repeatedly she's tried to have intervention and speak with her and say that, how things can be better between them. Every time she says, yeah, now I will not behave so harshly, but then she does it all over again. So then my advice to that devotee was that I think you should just stay away from some people like that, because it's just their nature. Maybe the envy is so deep-rooted that they are not able to get over it. So you're right. You have to assess the situation and the person. If you have already made efforts and it has been useless, then maybe just keep a distance. Just don't be in association of toxic people. Maybe they need time to overcome their anarthas. So there's no point that you also get dragged into that negativity. Just avoid them, speak minimally, don't let their words affect you. That would be the right thing to do. But the first step should be, as you said, that extend an olive branch, which is try to resolve things first.
Thank you, Mataji. Mataji, there is a follow-up question from Tripti Sharma Mataji. She says, thank you, Mataji, for answering so nicely. I've tried maintaining my sadhana every day. However, I feel I'm stuck with this cycle of falling down and not being able to regain myself the right way. I have followed my prescribed sadhana every day.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I just got a bit distracted. That the problem is of always falling down and not being able to remain steady.
Sadhana every day. So you mentioned about steadiness.
Yeah.
While answering the last question. So she's saying that I have maintained my sadhana every day. However, I feel I'm stuck with the cycle of falling down and not being able to regain myself the right way.
Okay. So who is the question by?
This is from Tripti Sharma Mataji.
Tripti. Okay, Tripti Mataji, I think one thing is that don't get disheartened, because it is such a gradual process. We have lifetimes of conditioning that we are now trying to overcome. So it's not going to happen in a hurry. It's not just what we have experienced in this time. There are so many desires and things which are in seed form in our heart, and they fructify every now and then. So it will take a lot of cleansing for all that to go away. So if the fall down is happening, no problem. Pick yourself up and go on with your sadhana. It will become less and less frequent till it stops. So that's one thing. Second thing is to be more with the people who can help you out. If you feel that there is a particular problem that you're struggling with, it would be nice to have a devotee buddy who can kind of keep check on you. Like sometimes devotees just get lost on the phone. They feel their device time is just sucking time out of their spiritual life, and that they feel is their fall down, because they could have done so much service. So then get someone to see at the end of the day how much was their device time, and they can be like a bit stern that what, why, come on, and keep check on them. That in the evening when they have free time, they're going to get on the device. So give them a call and say, listen, why don't you do this? This is a lovely lecture that I heard, or here's a Krishna conscious drama. So if you have to be on the device, you be more productive like that. If you can get a friend to keep checks on you, this was really done when devotees earlier come to Krishna consciousness, that their mentors or some other devotees would always be checking on them, that how are they doing, not letting them slide back into habits that they're trying to overcome. So get some help. It would be nice. And otherwise, don't be disheartened. It will surely get better if you're, as you're saying, steady with your sadhana. It will definitely happen.
There's one question from Sneha Kumari Mataji. She writes, Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for such amazing class, Mataji. I got married 5 years ago. My husband introduced me to Krishna consciousness, but has himself become very slack nowadays. How to maintain enthusiasm as I have no other physical association. Also, how to help my husband because he gets offended if I directly speak anything about it.
This is a little tricky because especially when Mataji doesn't have any other association. But it is difficult as a wife to kind of try to pull your husband up if he is falling behind in devotional service. So one thing is that's not going to work. It usually doesn't work unless the husband is unusually humble, that he will accept instructions. So perhaps you can stop that. That is not going to help. It will probably just hinder, because then it becomes a negative cycle, where internally the husband starts feeling that, yeah, I'm like so fallen in my devotional practice that my wife has to give me instructions. So that's not very helpful. I would say that keep your enthusiasm high. Sometimes that is encouraging to see in a quiet way, not like showing off or not like saying that, oh, but I have to do my rounds. So, just deal with it. No, if your husband is not at this point that favorable, then you do your devotional activities in such a way that it's not in his face. You don't want him to feel that you are being superior by being a better devotee. And pray for his devotional well-being. Sometimes these are just phases. It could be because of association or work pressure or whatever. A person who has once taken to Krishna consciousness, chances are high that they'll come back. So don't lose hope. Maybe your husband will turn around. But on your part, you should be encouraging. If there's anything that he wants to do, be super supportive and encouraging. It may be even just visiting the temple. If he has, or if he's supportive of your practice, he lets you do something, be sure to let him know that you're grateful. There are also some transcendental tricks, like you can say that there are some purports that you're not understanding. You want him to take little time and explain to you. So like that, if you give him a little bit of incentive, then maybe it will be good for him, or involve him in some service that, such and such devotee wanted some help, and would you like to do that? Like that. Be a little encouraging in ways that he can handle it. And be a little sensitive, because it's happened with him. It can happen to you also some years down the line. Then the worst thing is if you're not chanting and the spouse says, hey, you're not even chanting, what's wrong? One gets all defensive, like, oh, what do you know what's happening in my life internally? I'm already feeling so bad and repentant. So it doesn't always help that someone mentions it to you. So just try to be supportive and continue with your sadhana. It is certainly difficult and disheartening if a person who was initially really your partner in spiritual journey is now falling behind or not with you. But remain hopeful and take association of devotees. Otherwise, online or through phone, if you have some devotee friends, keep in touch. It's important to have association. Otherwise, it can be quite lonely. We do want to share nice things, nice realizations with other devotees. And that's how we grow, because we hear from what their experiences are. So seek out some association. Sure, if you look for it, you'll find some group or someone who you can associate with. There are so many Matajis who have reading groups or other programs online. So I encourage you to participate in that. Hare Krishna.
This is all from the chat box, Mataji.
So then we should conclude today's session. Thank you so much for your patience and kind participation. Sneha Mataji, thank you so much. Then we pranam to all the wonderful Vaishnavis. Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Please bless me and I beg forgiveness for Lord Krishna if I've committed some offense. It's daunting to be discussing these very, very wonderful topics. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.